Hello people, it's your boy Skinny Penis. Today with a quickie, an actual quickie. It might just be over before it even started. I had this game a few days ago on stream, and I think it illustrates very well what super ships and especially heavy super ship matchmaking brings to the game, and also that the insane discrepancy of super ships at the moment, like strength level wise, is also pretty fucking, let's say, confusing or unsuited for the game. What do we have here? As said, like it's full super ship matchmaking essentially. I mean, it's triple patry, the super carrier as well, and then there's one cruiser. Interestingly enough, first thing about super ships, I mean, this is mostly just gonna be a rant, a rant about super ships in general. Uh, in this kind of matchmaking, we're still allowed to face 3 tier 9s. I mean, it's hilariously dumb to put a Brindisi Brest or the 2 tier 9 BBs into this matchmaking, because an Iwami is never going to do anything against me in an Annapolis. There's no way. He has 32mm plating, he doesn't have 30 overmatch, and the entire concept of Annapolis and Conde, for example, is based on the fact that there's so much 30 overmatch. So the moment you don't have it, you essentially are just food for these ships. What is going to happen here? Well, I'm going to go to the rock. This map is, and this map layout, Northern Lights it's not North, is insanely favorable for Des Moines or Annapolis in the middle, specifically if the enemy team doesn't play 8, 9, 10 line up top, like on the north side, on their side, like up in this corner, because I can essentially play around the island that is in front of me the entire time without being spotted most of the game. The only thing that obviously cucks you here is then the CV spotting, which will not be that big of an issue, but if the CV wouldn't have been in the game, that game would have been the freest game essentially in the history of World of Warships. It's going to be a very quick, very high damage game, and it shows how insane super ships are. The main issue with the super ships currently is, first of all, that most of the BBs and cruisers don't allow for any mistake against them. We were already at a point on tier 10 where the slightest fuck up essentially is a turbo int immediately, because everything just kills you so fast, driven by the overmatch. I mean, I always say it, like the overmatch drives more DPM and gimmick on the cruisers, because they're unwilling to give more cruisers armor, and then like obviously reduce DPM and gimmick. So since the cruisers then have more DPM and gimmick, like radars, hydros, everything, even bombs on Guden, the DDs, which are countered by the cruisers, obviously get buffed too, and then you end up with shit like Ragnar. And the entire reason why this happens is essentially just the amount of overmatch we're currently facing in this game. That guy detonates, which is very helpful, but in general, no one is on the 8, 9, 10 line here. So unless the carrier comes and spots me here, I'm just gonna be AFK farming behind that rock forever. Like, nothing really happens. Also, there is a triple patry 32mm BB conveniently placing themselves behind the rock in a way that I can lob it. You will also see that none of these 3 patries are using fire prevention, which is the next problem. Not only can you not make any mistake against an Annapolis or specifically a Conde or a Satsuma because of the F keys they have, you also have the problem of the discrepancy in skill between players and super ships. You thought like having a bad CV against a good CV is already bad and shit. Now imagine you can have an Annapolis that has, I don't know, 200k average, and an Annapolis that has 20k average and just ints the entire time. It's insane. Like, these ships are made to potentially kill 5, 6 enemies by themselves if they're set up correctly or if you play them correctly. And the enemy Annapolis, for example, won't kill a single one, he will just int in. So essentially, Wargaming implemented a bigger skill gap, or essentially the same skill gap that was already in the game with RTS carriers. They said they didn't want that, now they're doing it again. They give a ship so much carry potential, while not locking it behind any sort of skill, experience, wall, whatever. Like, you don't have to be a good player to reach these ships. The only thing they implemented, which is probably also the only reason why we don't see super ships spammed in randoms, is that they are very expensive to run for idiots. And I always call it, an idiot filter, and it is. It for sure is. The service costs of these ships are the only reason matchmaking hasn't gone to absolute dog shit on tier 10 and 8 and 9 because of super ships being spammed. Because in order to spam them as a really, really bad player, essentially NPC or super idiot, you have to open your wallet, and you have to open your wallet in a really disgusting way. Because credits aren't that cheap to buy, and it may get you only like a few hundred games for a few. Like you buy the highest credit package, you can play the ship maybe for 100 games or something. I didn't do the math, but it's definitely really expensive to run these ships while inting. Now, regarding the strength level of these super ships, Wargaming probably realized that super ships in general are too strong, specifically the first ones that have been introduced. The only super ships that are really balanced are the DDs, and probably excluding Zorki, because Zorki is really, really strong and also pesky to deal with, but the impact is kind of limited, and also there's lots of ship combinations or ships in general that can fuck with Zorki. The other ships that were introduced in the beginning are absolutely demented. Satsuma is an AFK perma-click with F key available. If someone turns broadside in randoms, it does like 200k from spawn. Annapolis and Conde can murder through the entire enemy team if they either receive a smoke on Annapolis or can sit on a good rock. Or Conde, someone turns flat broadside in front of it, it's 100% death strike essentially on most ships. It's more reliable than a Vermont to kill people. The Hanover is also, if played correctly, super toxic to deal with. I mean, it's a 12 versus 12, that's why Hanover doesn't seem so strong, but if like if you have a dedicated 1v1 or 1v2, Hanover wins these 10 out of 10. As you can see, I'm already on 300k. That's like the gimmick of this game. The YY laid me one smoke. I could sit behind the rock the entire time farm battleships. Sadly, the game is going to be ending up in a zeroing here. Pretty obvious why. Now I got Halsey proc, can't even use it. That's the next thing, like Annapolis procs Halsey essentially every game. Gets 20% reload deduction for free. Mid-game, randomly, and it already has the highest DPM. So that's like kind of weird. So, to finish the point with the super ships, the early super ships are insanely busted already. Everything is broken. Armor scheme, DPM, speed on Conde, dodging capability, HP pool, F-key ability, guns in general. And now they started implementing ships like Dalarna or Clausewitz that are actual like logical conclusions from tier 10 to 11. My guess would be they nerf the original ones or remove the F-key at some point, because otherwise there is no point in playing the newer super ships that have been introduced. I'm not gonna go too detailed into the fact that super carriers are the most disgusting piece of junk they have ever come up with. Even after multiple nerfs to the tech squad DPM, they're still broken as hell. It's going to be interesting to see further super carriers at least, because if the concept keeps up like they currently are, it's super disgusting to think about something like a super Richthofen with AP damage all the time, like Citadel damage, or a super Nakhimov that can like murder through entire squads, teams I mean. Yeah, and then there's Uchakov coming too. I mean, yeah, in general, like, I don't know why these ships are allowed to play against tier 9, it's absolutely moronic. I don't know why these ships follow the same path as they already did with cruisers on tier 10, for example. Increasing DPM and gimming instead of just giving them armor. I think it's mandatory at this point that they decelerate games, because everything can one-shot everything on a super ship level, and I don't know if that is good for a casual, like they call it casual game, like World of Warships, where a lot of boomers, or just like let's say chilly people that don't want to think about the game too in depth, are playing randoms at night, and then they roll up with or against super unicums or even blunicum super ships that one-shot everyone. I don't think that is smart at all. In any case, as you can see, it's a 340k damage game. The Shimmer detonated, which helped. The enemy team played like idiots essentially. None of the Patrice had fire prevention, even though they're playing a 32mm battleship that gets HE penned already, and they're like supposedly should be experienced players. If they reached a tier 11 super BB, which they are not, They're not experienced at all. I mean, otherwise they would fucking spec fire prevention. And you could just see that I essentially killed all of them from behind a rock while they did nothing. So there was never a chance to do anything there for the remaining team because their super ships were so demented. It's GG. Yeah, well, it's a lot of damage. The Brindisi also gifted a lot. It's an interesting scoreboard for sure. Essentially, half of my team didn't do anything because they didn't get to. Half of the enemy team didn't do anything because they didn't get to. Evo was playing Patrie himself, so it was even worse. I mean, you can run Blue Unicum, Unicum, or Super Unicum triple super ship divisions, and if you play on the weekend, for example, you're most likely gonna run into 3 very unexperienced players that you can grief the hell out. And the remaining team that is mostly consistent of tier 9 and 10 ships can't really do anything afterwards. They just get fucked. It's just the way it is. Super ships aren't a logical conclusion of tier 10. Super ships are straight up tier 12, most of them. Like an Annapolis isn't an improvement of Des Moines, it's straight up a double Des Moines, essentially. It's disgusting. The same with Conde. It's not a conclusion, like a logical step above Henry. It's just a double Henry. Like it fucks everything. And here is the funny thing about that game. The entire game length was sub 7 minutes. This is not okay, in my opinion. I mean, I wasn't even smoke botted. I just had a good map with a good rock, which could happen all the time. It's the same thing as rolling up with a concealment conda on a flank and your DD spots an enemy cruiser, he gamer turns, and you have an ability, you literally have an ability that can 100% one-shot him unless the game bugs out on you. Like your salvo or your burst salvo is landing short because of aiming bugs. You have 100% secure, like a secure way of one-shotting cruisers and DDs and close up even most battleships. Yeah, well, it's pretty fun. Interestingly enough, the DDs aren't that impressive, really. They are more like a step above the tier 10s, and it's fine. As said, like, Sorky is maybe a bit overtuned. But in general, I don't think they have any clue of how to balance these ships. And the F keys they originally introduced to make them very interesting and like pay to win, maybe even. Like they wanted the entire server and player base to get them because they were so fucking strong, the super ships, the original ones, the 6 that got released on that one patch. They made them intentionally broken with the F keys specifically, and now they're not removing them while introducing new super ships like a Clausewitz. That is essentially as good as a Hindenburg. It's a bit better, but it's not straight up Conde Henry discrepancies. In any case, you could see the demented gameplay here. Sit Rock, Farm HE, funny Annapolis DPM, also cracked AP. You could even burst people. You can one-shot DDs or cruises in Annapolis too with the burst. It's not as reliable as Conde, and it's not as effective at range, but it still works out. You have radar, you have hydro, you have better armor scheme than Des Moines, way better. You have more HP. Essentially the same counts for Conde over Henry, and yeah, let's see where this is heading, because with introduction of Sekirio or whatever it is and Uchakov, I don't know what kind of shit they still have in the pipeline regarding super ships and their obviously respective counterpart in the tech tree. I'm just saying, like Super Nakimov here, Super Petro, Super Nevsky, Super Kleber. There could be a whole lot of shit coming down the pipeline, and the way it looks, they're not really smart about balancing them at all. But yeah, gotta deal with it. If you're sick and fed up with it, just play Super Ship yourself, I guess. That's it for me. Sub 7 minutes, 340k game. I think that's kinda demented, and see you on stream. Take it easy. Skinny Penis is out.